The key didn't fit the door to my house after my vacation. A shocking betrayal by my own daughter. "What happened?" I asked, and she shouted, "This is our house now, you old bum!" Her husband laughed into the phone. "We'll sell it and pay off my debts." I smiled calmly, ended the conversation, and wrote to my lawyer. Our plan worked. A few minutes later, they started to panic. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The key slid into the lock, turned halfway, then stopped. I pulled it out, examined the brass teeth under the fading afternoon light, then tried again. Same resistance, like the metal inside had been replaced with something that didn't recognize what I was holding, which it had been. I stepped back from the front door of my house, what used to be my house, and studied the lock mechanism. Different brand, Schlade instead of Kwikset. Someone had gone to the hardware store, purchased new deadbolts, and spent an hour installing them while I was supposedly catching base at Lake Conroe. The fishing trip had been deliberate. 7 days away, long enough for desperation to override caution. I walked along the stone pathway toward the side gate, my boots scraping against pebbles I'd laid down myself 15 years ago. The combination lock on the gate still opened, with the code I'd set when Lucretia was in college, her birthday backwards. Some things they hadn't thought to change. The backyard looked exactly as I'd left it. The oak tree I planted the day she was born stood in the corner, its February branches bare and skeletal. I crossed the patchy winter grass to the back door and tried my key there too. New lock, same story. Through the kitchen window I could see the granite countertops I'd saved 2 years to install. The curtains in the upstairs bedroom shifted slightly. Someone was home, moving around in rooms where I'd lived for 32 years. I walked back to my pickup truck and sat in the driver's seat. The leather was still warm from the drive back from the lake. My phone sat in the cup holder where I'd placed it that morning, screen dark and patient. 3 months ago I'd downloaded a recording app. Simple interface. Red button to start, black button to stop. I'd never needed it as an assistant district attorney. The interrogation rooms had their own systems. But retirement meant handling my own evidence collection. I opened the app, pressed record, then dialed Lucretia's number. Put it on speaker, set the phone on the dashboard where the microphone would catch everything cleanly. She answered on the third ring. "What do you want?" "Not hi, Dad," or "How was your trip?" Just cold irritation, like I was a telemarketer interrupting her dinner. "Lucretia, my key doesn't work. What happened to the locks?" A pause. Then her voice came back sharper, almost triumphant. "Those aren't your locks anymore, Dad. This is our house now. Mine and Edwin's. You should find somewhere else to stay, old man. Maybe a shelter for the homeless would take you." I heard shuffling, then Edwin's voice crashed through the speaker, louder and more aggressive than I'd ever heard it. "Yeah, listen up, Granville. We own this place now. Got all the paperwork done legal and everything. We're selling it next week. Gonna clear my $340,000 in debts. You had your time living comfortable. Now it's our turn." $340,000. He actually said it out loud, confirmed the exact figure I'd suspected. "I see." I kept my voice level, almost pleasant. "Well, you two enjoy your evening, then." I ended the call, played back the last 10 seconds. Edwin's voice came through perfectly. The desperation, the specific dollar amount, the admission of ownership claims. Crystal clear. I opened my email, attached the audio file to a message I'd drafted weeks ago, added 3 words. Our plan worked. Sent it to Margaret Chen's address. The file was 47 seconds long. Long enough. I started the truck, backed out of the driveway without looking at the house again, and drove toward downtown Houston. The evening traffic was light for a Friday. I took Woodway to 610, then exited on West Dallas. 25 minutes later, I parked outside a modest apartment complex in Midtown. Nothing fancy. Brick exterior staircases. The kind of place where people minded their own business. I'd rented apartment 2F 2 months ago, paid 6 months upfront in cash, listed my name as the sole tenant. I climbed the stairs carrying only my fishing gear bag. The key to 2F worked perfectly. Inside, the furnished space smelled like fresh paint and new carpet. 1 bedroom, galley kitchen, living room barely large enough for a couch and television. On the kitchen table sat a thick manila folder. I dropped my bag by the door, pulled out one of the 2 chairs, and sat down. The folder's tab read, Moreno, Evidence File, in my own handwriting. I opened it slowly. Everything I'd gathered over 3 months lay inside, organized chronologically like a prosecutor's case file, because that's exactly what it was. And now the defendants had just provided their confession. I spread the folder's contents across the small table. A yellow legal pad filled with dated observations starting November 12th. A flash drive labeled Security Footage, Kitchen, in black marker. Bank statements showing transfers I'd made in January. Margaret Chen's business card with her cell number written on the back. A thin stack of photographs showing Edwin's silver Lexus parked outside my house at strange hours. Midnight on a Tuesday, 6 in the morning on a Thursday. The kind of hours that suggested someone was watching me, learning my patterns, waiting for an opening. 3 months ago, I'd noticed the shift in Lucretia's behavior. She started visiting more frequently, always with questions that seemed casual, but weren't. We'd be sitting at the dining room table, and she'd ask about my will, my estate planning, whether I'd organized my financial documents. Edwin would stand near the fireplace, pretending to admire the family photos, while his eyes tracked every word. During one November visit, I'd caught him measuring the living room walls with a tape measure. Just thinking about renovation ideas, he'd said, grinning. This place has so much potential. Then he'd pulled out his phone and photographed every room, the crown molding, the hardwood floors, the updated kitchen appliances, taking inventory. I'd smiled and offered him coffee. Inside, something clicked into place. The prosecutor's instinct I'd relied on for 35 years started cataloging evidence. 1 month ago, I'd set the trap. I printed a power of attorney template from a legal website, the kind that grants someone authority to sell property on your behalf. Left the signature line blank, placed it in a manila envelope along with my house deed. On a Sunday afternoon in early January, I positioned both documents prominently on the kitchen table before Lucretia and Edwin arrived for our scheduled 3 o'clock dinner. At 3:45, I excused myself to the bathroom, stayed there 15 minutes, running the water occasionally, giving them time and opportunity. When I returned, the document sat in the same spot, but the envelope's corner was bent slightly different. The deed had been rotated maybe 2 degrees. That night, I opened the security app on my phone. The camera I'd installed in October, a wireless unit disguised as a book spine on my study shelf, had a perfect angle on the kitchen table. I selected January 12th, fast-forwarded to 3:47. Edwin glanced toward the hallway where I'd disappeared, looked at Lucretia. She nodded once. He pulled out his phone, activated the camera, and started photographing. First the power of attorney, multiple shots from different angles. Then the house deed, zooming in on the property description, the legal language, my name on the title. He checked the bathroom door nervously, photographed everything again. His hands shook slightly as he arranged the documents back into their original position. 12 minutes of footage, all of it backed up to 3 separate cloud accounts. 3 weeks ago, I'd walked into Margaret Chen's office on Travis Street. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and a skeptical expression that reminded me of the better defense attorneys I'd faced in court. Mr. Moreno, you said on the phone this was about property fraud. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. I sat down and opened my evidence folder. I need someone who understands property fraud and isn't afraid to file criminal charges when the time comes. I'm going to let them steal from me, and I need you to help me send them to prison for it. Her eyebrows rose. Mr. Moreno, what you're describing is entrapment if we're not careful. But if they act entirely on their own volition, and we simply document their choices. She leaned forward. I can work with that. It'll cost you, though. This isn't a simple case. We spent 43 minutes reviewing everything. The photographs, the footage, the timeline of suspicious behavior. She took notes in shorthand, occasionally stopping me to ask clarifying questions. Then we protected the assets. I transferred my vintage car collection, 3 restored vehicles worth $120,000 total, into a newly formed LLC called Moreno Holdings. Moved my investment portfolio, another $340,000, into the same structure. Opened a new bank account and transferred $180,000 in liquid savings. Left $15,000 in my personal account. just enough for normal expenses, not suspiciously empty, and I left the house in my name. Perfect bait, worth $580,000. They'll go for it, Margaret had said, signing the incorporation papers. Desperate people always do. I wrote her a check for $8,000, her retainer. Now, sitting in the rental apartment the morning after their theft, I checked my phone. A text from Mr. Patterson, my neighbor 3 houses down. Patrick taught high school English for 30 years before retiring. Observant, careful. The message included a photo taken at 11 last night. Every light in my house blazing. Through the front window, Edwin carrying a cardboard box. Lucretia in the background raising a wine glass toward the dining room chandelier I'd bought in 1998. Furniture rearranged slightly, like they were already redecorating. Patrick's caption read, Granville, saw your truck gone this week. Everything okay? Your daughter and her husband were moving around inside pretty late last night. Looked like they were celebrating something. Want me to keep an eye on the place? I typed back. Thanks for watching out, Patrick. Everything's under control. I'd appreciate those extra eyes, though. Let me know if anything else unusual happens. At 9:15, my phone rang. Margaret Chen. Granville, we just got a gift. Her voice carried barely contained excitement. Darlene Webb, the notary, just contacted our office. She notarized your supposed power of attorney 2 weeks ago, never actually met you, and now she's nervous about the signature. She's willing to testify that she violated notary protocol because Edwin pressured her. This is solid. 2 weeks ago. That matched the timeline. Edwin and Lucretia had photographed the documents in January, forged my signature, and rushed to get it notarized before I returned from any trip. How soon can we file with the police? I asked. 2 hours after Margaret's call, I stood outside the Harris County Police Headquarters on Reisner Street. The building rose like a concrete monument to order in downtown Houston's maze of glass towers and parking structures. Margaret waited near the entrance, briefcase in hand, her dark suit crisp despite the February humidity. We exchanged brief nods. No need for conversation. We'd covered everything during her morning call. She'd do most of the talking initially. I'd provide technical details when needed. Keep it professional. Let the evidence speak. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as we passed through metal detectors. A desk sergeant directed us to the 3rd floor, Economic Crimes Division. The elevator smelled like burnt coffee and contained 2 other passengers, a detective scrolling through his phone, a nervous civilian clutching documents. The hallway on 3 had scuffed linoleum and faded motivational posters about integrity. Margaret led us past cubicles where detectives typed reports and spoke quietly into phones. Looking for Detective Silva, she told a uniformed officer. End of the hall, last office on the right. The nameplate read, Date Ramon Silva, Economic Crimes. Margaret knocked twice. Come in. Silva stood when we entered. Mid-40s, fit, with sharp eyes that took in everything before his mouth formed a smile. Those eyes landed on me, and recognition flashed instantly. Granville Moreno, he extended his hand. Hasn't been what, 7 or 8 years? You look good. Retired life treating you well? Though I'm guessing this isn't a social visit. I shook his hand. Firm grip. Professional. Ramon? Wish it were social. I need to file a criminal complaint. Forgery and property fraud. Silva gestured to 2 chairs facing his desk. Have a seat. Margaret settled into her chair and opened her briefcase with practiced efficiency. Detective Silva, my client's daughter and son-in-law, have forged a power of attorney document, fraudulently claimed ownership of his $580,000 home, changed the locks while he was away, and are planning to sell the property illegally. We have documentary evidence, audio recordings, and witness testimony. She began removing documents one by one, arranging them on Silva's desk in organized sequence. First came a timeline chart showing 3 months of suspicious behavior. Then the audio file transcription, 47 seconds of incriminating conversation. Silva leaned forward. This audio recording, was Mr. Moreno in Texas when he recorded it? And did the other parties know they were being recorded? One party consent applies, Margaret confirmed. Texas law. My client was in his vehicle in Harris County when the call occurred. The other parties had no expectation of privacy during a phone conversation where one party chose to document it. Silva nodded and picked up his desk phone. Let me get this to forensic analysis. He dialed an internal extension. Yeah, I need a rush on document analysis. Possible forgery on a power of attorney. Comparing with known signature samples from the alleged victim. How soon? 3 days? Make it work. He hung up and turned to me. Granville, I need handwriting samples. Bank signature cards, old legal documents from your prosecutor days. Anything with your legitimate signature. I pulled a folder from Margaret's briefcase. Already prepared. 15 samples spanning 20 years. Silva studied my face for 10 seconds, reading me the way he'd learned to read suspects and witnesses, looking for deception, for hesitation, for the small tells that reveal lies. He wouldn't find any. Everything here looks solid, Silva said finally. I'll send the disputed power of attorney to our forensic document examiner, along with your signature samples. They'll analyze ink composition, pressure points, letter formation. If someone forged your signature, we'll prove it. Margaret slid another document across the desk. This is a notarized statement from Darlene Webb. She's the notary who certified the power of attorney 2 weeks ago. She admits she never met Mr. Moreno in person, violation of Texas notary protocol. The couple claimed he was waiting in the car due to poor health. She's willing to testify that something felt wrong about the signature, even at the time. Silva read Webb's statement carefully, then placed everything into a clear evidence bag. He wrote a case number on a yellow sticky note and attached it to the bag. Mr. Moreno, I need you to sign a statement, affirming you never signed this power of attorney document and never authorized anyone to sell your property. I signed without hesitation, my handwriting firm and clear, the same signature that appeared on those 15 comparison samples. Nothing like whatever scrawl Edwin had attempted on the forged document. 5 days crawled by. I stayed in the Midtown apartment, organized my thoughts, prepared for what would come next. On the 6th morning, my phone rang. Silva, forensic results are back. Definitive forgery. Ink analysis shows different pen than your signature samples. Pressure points completely wrong. Letter formation inconsistent with your natural hand. We're moving forward with interrogation. When? Tomorrow morning. I'm calling them now to request they come in for questioning, making it sound routine, just clarifying property documentation. I won't mention the criminal investigation. The trap was set. The next morning, Edwin and Lucretia arrived at the police station separately, both casual and confident. Edwin wore jeans and an untucked shirt. Lucretia had on yoga pants and a zip-up jacket. They didn't dress like people expecting to be confronted with evidence of felony forgery. Silva escorted Edwin to a small interrogation room first. Gray walls, metal table bolted to the floor, 2 chairs. Lucretia waited in a holding area down the hall. I wasn't there, Silva kept me informed later, but I could picture it perfectly. The small room, the fluorescent lights. Edwin's initial confidence as Silva asked basic questions. So, Mr. Carver, can you walk me through your relationship with Granville Moreno? How long have you known him? Edwin leaned back, arms crossed. About 6 years, since I started dating his daughter. Granville and I never really got along, honestly. He's one of those guys who thinks nobody's good enough for his little girl. And the house? How did you come to take possession of the memorial property? Look, Granville is 63 years old, starting to lose track of things. He told us clear as day that he wanted us to have the house, said it made him feel better knowing Lucretia would be taken care of. We were doing him a favor, really. Silva took notes, nodding occasionally. Let Edwin talk himself deeper into the lie for 18 minutes. So Mr. Moreno verbally gave you the house? Told you directly that he wanted you to own it? Absolutely. He was having trouble managing it anyway, forgetting to pay bills, leaving the stove on. Lucretia was worried. And you're certain that's what happened? Edwin's confidence peaked. 100%. Silva reached for his laptop, rotated it so Edwin could see the screen. Clicked play. The sound quality was crystal clear. Edwin's own voice boomed through the speakers, aggressive, entitled, threatening. Yeah, listen up, Granville. We own this place now. Got all the paperwork done, legal and everything. We're selling it next week. Gonna clear my $340,000 in debts. Edwin's hands gripped the edge of the table. His knuckles went white. His mouth opened twice, but produced no sound. Finally, weakly, that was taken out of context. What context makes that statement align with your claim that Mr. Moreno willingly gave you the house? Edwin stammered. That was right after he was confused. He didn't understand what was happening. We were just trying to... I mean, the situation was more complicated than... He trailed off, knew he was caught. 10 minutes later, Silva brought Lucretia into the same room. She saw Edwin's face and immediately started explaining, before Silva asked a single question. He set us up, don't you see? Dad planned this whole thing, leaving those documents out, going on that fishing trip. He wanted us to take the house so he could do exactly this. It's entrapment. Silva's expression remained neutral. Ma'am, entrapment is when law enforcement induces someone to commit a crime they wouldn't otherwise commit. Your father isn't law enforcement. He's a private citizen who left his own documents in his own house. You chose to forge his signature. That's on you. Edwin slammed his palm on the table. Shut up, Lucretia. Just shut up. This was your idea. You wanted that house so bad you couldn't wait for him to actually die. He turned to Silva. We want a lawyer. This interview is over. Silva stood slowly, gathered his papers. You're both persons of interest in an active criminal investigation. Don't leave Harris County. If you're planning to travel, notify this office. He handed each of them a business card. You'll be hearing from the district attorney's office soon. He escorted them out through separate exits. Standard procedure to prevent story coordination. The fracture had begun. 4 days after the interrogation, Edwin sat in a leather chair that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Jimmy Kowalski's office on Westheimer Road screamed success. Wall-mounted plaques celebrating trial victories, expensive artwork, a view of the Galleria area's high-rises through floor-to-ceiling windows. Kowalski leaned back behind his desk, multiple gold rings catching the light as he tapped a pen against a yellow legal pad. Mid-40s, perfectly styled hair, suit that cost at least $3,000. The kind of attorney who made a career attacking prosecutors instead of defending facts. Here's what we're going to do, Kowalski said. We don't defend the forgery charges. We attack Granville's credibility and make him the villain. Edwin shifted forward, eager. Perfect. Because Granville is exactly that kind of guy. Controlling, always right. Never let me forget he was some hotshot prosecutor. This is going to destroy him. The forgery charge is going to be hard to beat if that signature analysis holds up. Kowalski stood and walked to a whiteboard mounted on his wall, drew 3 columns labeled criminal defense, civil offense, PR campaign. But we can create enough doubt about context, about his mental state, that even if there's a conviction, it's minimal, and civil court has a lower burden of proof. We can win there. Edwin had drained his last available credit card to pay Kowalski's $15,000 retainer. The past 4 days had been frantic research, desperate phone calls, mounting panic. But sitting here now, listening to Kowalski outline the strategy, Edwin felt the first surge of hope since hearing that recording in Silva's interrogation room. We file a civil complaint, Kowalski continued, writing rapidly on the whiteboard. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Financial elder abuse. Claim he manipulated Lucretia into spending her savings on house repairs he promised to reimburse. Request a restraining order preventing him from harassing his own daughter. Make him look like a bully using legal expertise to persecute family. What about the newspaper? Edwin asked. Kowalski smiled. Already done. 2 days ago, I arranged an interview with the Houston Chronicle. Patricia Vance. She covers local human interest stories. Lucretia gave her the performance of a lifetime. That interview had taken place in Kowalski's smaller conference room. Lucretia sat across from Patricia Vance, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and a recorder on the table between them. Kowalski stood behind the reporter where Lucretia could see him, subtly nodding or shaking his head as she spoke. When Lucretia started sounding angry, Kowalski touched his temple, their prearranged signal. She immediately switched to tears and vulnerability. My father was always so harsh, so demanding, Lucretia had said, voice breaking perfectly on cue. When he started forgetting things, missing appointments, I tried to help. He asked me to take over the house management because he couldn't handle it anymore. Now he's turned on me, using his prosecutor training to make me look like a criminal. I'm his daughter, and he's trying to put me in prison. Patricia had leaned forward sympathetically. That must be so painful, having your own father accuse you like this. Do you think his age and possible cognitive decline are factors in his behavior? I think he's confused and scared. Maybe he really doesn't remember giving me the house. That terrifies me. That his mind is going, and instead of letting me help him, he's lashing out. I just want my dad back. Perfect. Every word carefully scripted to build the dementia defense, while painting Granville as the aggressor. Now, 4 days after the interrogation and 2 days after that interview, I sat in my midtown rental apartment reading the Houston Chronicle over morning coffee. Page B4, local section. Headline: Daughter claims elderly father's prosecution is elder abuse gone wrong. The photo showed Lucretia looking distraught, tissue in hand, eyes red. I read the article twice. The first time my jaw tightened as I absorbed each accusation. Memory problems. Begged her to handle affairs. Doesn't remember. The second time, I methodically underlined specific phrases, recognizing Kowalski's manipulative hand behind every carefully crafted sentence. Memory problems. Begged her to handle affairs. Doesn't remember. I set down my pen and took a sip of coffee. Every single phrase is designed to build the dementia defense. Clever, not clever enough. Over the next 3 days, I experienced small social punishments that accumulated like paper cuts. Mr. Patterson, my neighbor 3 houses down from the memorial property, stopped waving when I drove past his new location near my rental route. He'd clearly read the article, hurried inside like I carried something contagious. At the grocery store on Richmond Avenue, the young cashier who normally chatted about weather scanned my items in silence, glanced at me with an uncertain expression, wondering if the nice older gentleman who bought the same brand of coffee every week was actually a cruel prosecutor persecuting his confused daughter. My phone pinged. Text from Jerry Thornton, former colleague from the DA's office. Hey man, saw the article about you and your daughter. Hope you're doing okay. That situation sounds rough. Call if you need anything. I typed back, Thanks, Jerry. It's complicated. I'm fine. Justice takes time. That afternoon, a knock at my apartment door. Process server, middle-aged woman with a clipboard. She handed me legal documents, asked me to sign acknowledging receipt, waited patiently while I flipped through the 30-page countercomplaint. Kowalski had filed it in Harris County Civil Court that morning. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, financial elder abuse, request for a restraining order, claims that Lucretia had spent $30,000 on house improvements I'd promised to reimburse. Fabricated. All of it. I closed the door, sat heavily on the couch, and called Margaret. I just got served, I said when she answered. Me too. I'm reading it now. I heard papers rustling, small, frustrated sounds as she scrolled through the PDF version emailed to her office. Kowalski's good at this. Really good. He's already poisoned the well with that newspaper article. I've had 3 people call me today asking if you really have dementia. The preliminary hearing isn't until April. 6 weeks of this narrative spreading. Are you sure you're prepared for how dirty this could get? Margaret, I spent 20 years as a prosecutor. I know how defense attorneys operate. They attack credibility because they can't attack facts. Let Kowalski write his fiction. The forensic evidence doesn't care about newspaper articles. Evidence matters, yes, but public perception matters too. If this goes to trial, we need sympathetic jurors. Right now, you're reading as the villain. Powerful ex-prosecutor bullying his confused daughter. That's a problem. I walked to the kitchen counter where my evidence folder sat, opened it, removed a document labeled Phase 2 Financial Records that Margaret hadn't seen yet. I have more evidence than what we've shown Silva, I said. I've been documenting Edwin's financial situation, his debts, his desperation. When the time is right, we'll show exactly why they targeted my house. Kowalski doesn't know everything. Neither do you, yet. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you mean, neither do I yet? Granville, what aren't you telling me? I photographed the first page of the Phase 2 folder with my phone. Sent it to her. Let's just say I have insurance policies. Plural. You'll see them when we need them. For now, let Edwin and Kowalski think they're winning. 20 minutes after I sent that cryptic text, Margaret's car pulled up outside my apartment building. I watched from my window as she climbed the stairs 2 at a time. Unusual urgency for an attorney who prided herself on composed professionalism. She knocked once, entered without waiting for invitation. Show me. She dropped her briefcase on the couch, pointed at the folder on my kitchen table. And it better be good, Granville, because I don't appreciate surprises from my own clients. I wasn't hiding it. I was waiting for the right time. I pulled out a chair for her. Kowalski's counterattack was the right time. Sit down. I spread the documents across the table in chronological order. August 2024 on the left, January 2025 on the right. Bank statements for the joint account Lucretia shared with Edwin. Every suspicious transaction highlighted in yellow. Margaret leaned over, reading glasses sliding down her nose. Her finger traced the withdrawal patterns. Joint account with Lucretia. You're listed as emergency contact. She looked up. These withdrawals. Edwin's bleeding her dry. 89,000 in 6 months. A pause. You watched him do this? I gave Lucretia that money to help with her salon business. Edwin gambled it away. I tapped the transaction descriptions. I needed to document the pattern. Show this wasn't about family sentiment. It was about his addiction and desperation. Motive, Margaret. Clear, provable motive. She flipped through the statements. Crypto exchanges, online poker sites, cash advances at interest rates that should be illegal. Crypto exchanges, online poker sites, cash advances at ridiculous interest rates. She sat back. This man is drowning, and when drowning people see a lifeboat... She tapped my house deed documents. They don't ask permission to climb aboard. Margaret pulled out her phone and systematically photographed every page, created an album, uploaded everything to her firm's secure cloud storage. Silva needs to see this today, I said. The preliminary hearing is 5 weeks away. If we introduce financial motive now, it gives the DA time to incorporate it into the criminal charges. Agreed. But when we present this to Silva, let me do the talking about how you obtained these records. The legality is solid, but we need to frame it correctly. 20 minutes later, we were in her silver Lexus heading downtown. Margaret drove while I reviewed the documents one more time, making sure I could explain every transaction. Silva stood when we entered his office. Same professional handshake. Same sharp eyes taking in the thick folder I carried. Got something new? He asked. Margaret arranged the financial documents on his desk while I remained mostly silent. Let her provide the legal context. Emergency contact status. Duplicate statements. All perfectly legal. Silva put on his reading glasses and picked up the first bank statement. Studied it for a long moment. You're telling me Edwin burned through $89,000 in 6 months? On crypto and gambling? Every transaction documented, I said, and the pattern explains his desperation. Silva flipped through the pages. You documented every transaction. He looked up. You weren't just gathering evidence for forgery. You were building a conspiracy case. Not RICO, I said, but conspiracy to commit fraud, yes. He didn't forge my signature impulsively. He planned it. The financial desperation proves premeditation. Silva leaned back in his chair. I'll contact these creditors. If Pinnacle Capital or any of these other lenders can confirm Edwin specifically mentioned your house as future collateral, that strengthens intent. Give me 3 days. 3 days became a masterclass in investigative patience. Silva called creditors, pulled bank records, followed the money trail Edwin thought he'd hidden. The phone rang on the third afternoon. Silva's name on the screen. Granville, your son-in-law is in deeper than we thought. Total debts closer to $470,000. And here's the kicker. He tried to mortgage your house 5 weeks before you left for Lake Conroe. Bank rejected him for signature fraud. I stood from my chair, walked to the window. He tried to mortgage it first. When that didn't work, he just took it. Based on the creditor timeline, at least 3 months planning, probably longer. The forgery wasn't desperation. It was a calculated scheme. When the subtle approach failed, he went nuclear. Can you prove he knew the signature was forged when he submitted that loan application? Working on it. If we can show he intercepted the bank's verification attempts, the letter, the voicemails. That's obstruction and additional fraud. I'm pulling phone records now. After the call ended, I opened my laptop, created a new document. Timeline update. Loan application fraud. Typed everything Silva had told me. Dates, amounts, specific details. Saved it. Emailed a copy to Margaret. Subject line, the noose tightens. 5 weeks passed like water through cupped hands. February became March, became April. The preliminary hearing finally arrived. I stood before the bathroom mirror in my rental apartment, adjusting my tie. Navy blue with subtle pattern, the same tie I'd worn for closing arguments as a prosecutor. The fabric felt familiar between my fingers, muscle memory from a life that seemed both recent and distant. Margaret and I met outside the Harris County Criminal Courthouse on Franklin Street at 9:30. The building rose like a monument to order, all glass and concrete and the weight of consequences. We passed through security, metal detectors, empty pockets, remove belt, the familiar ritual. Courtroom 3C occupied the third floor. Marble floors, wooden benches in the hallway, the smell of old paper and newer anxiety. Jimmy Kowalski already sat at the defense table when we entered, Edwin beside him in an ill-fitting suit that hung loose on his shoulders. Lucretia in a conservative dress, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. They didn't look at me. Judge Catherine Morrison presided, a stern woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun. She listened to Kowalski's opening arguments with the patient expression of someone who'd heard every defense attorney trick in the book. Your Honor, Kowalski stood, tablet in hand. This audio recording was made using a smartphone app in 2025. Voice cloning technology is readily available to anyone with basic technical skills. We request independent voice analysis to verify this recording wasn't manipulated or outright fabricated. He slid a printed article across to the judge's bench, something about AI and deepfakes. Furthermore, the signature analysis was performed by a laboratory that regularly contracts with the Harris County DA's office. We question their objectivity. We request a neutral expert. Then came the dementia argument, affidavits from neighbors who'd supposedly observed concerning behavior, requests for psychiatric evaluation. Judge Morrison made notes on her legal pad. Let Kowalski speak for 15 minutes. Then she looked up. Mr. Kowalski, I've read your motions. I'm ordering independent verification precisely because you've raised these questions. Dr. Patricia Sanders will evaluate Mr. Moreno's mental state. Dr. Robert Huang from Texas Forensic Institute will re-examine the signature. You'll have your neutral experts. Court reconvenes May 5th when I have their reports. She banged the gavel once. In the hallway afterward, Margaret touched my arm. That went as well as we could expect. Morrison's smart. She knows Kowalski's playing games, but she has to address his objections for the record. You'll pass the psych eval easily. The signature analysis will confirm forgery again. We just have to wait. 2 weeks later, I sat in Dr. Patricia Sanders' office. Beige walls, comfortable leather chair, a desk with a computer that probably contained more about me than I'd ever know. Mr. Moreno, tell me about your typical day. I described my routine. Wake at 6:30. Coffee. News online. Manage finances through online banking. Maintain my own truck. Change the oil every 5,000 miles. She showed me sequences of words to remember. Asked me to draw a clock face showing 10 past 11. Simple math problems. Can you tell me what you had for breakfast 3 days ago? Wednesday, scrambled eggs, wheat toast, orange juice. I eat the same thing most mornings. Simplicity, not dementia. She administered formal tests, showed me 5 objects, asked me to recall them 5 minutes later. I remembered all 5, counted backward from 100 by sevens, named 23 animals in 1 minute. Every test proved what I already knew. My mind was sharp. The dementia defense was fiction. 4 days after the preliminary hearing, my phone rang. Marcus Herman, a name I hadn't heard in 15 years. Mr. Moreno? Marcus Herman from Herman Estate Sales. We did business back in 2010. I sold you a Victorian settee and Chippendale table. Someone just tried to sell those exact pieces to me. Said they were his. Thought you should know. Edwin, making mistakes faster than I could engineer them. Marcus, thank you for calling. Those pieces are definitely mine, still in my house. The man who tried to sell them is my son-in-law. He is currently illegally occupying my property. Can you refuse to buy them and document his attempt? Already planning to. I keep detailed records. If you need me to testify, I'm available. I don't facilitate theft. I called Silva immediately. Ramon, Edwin just made another mistake. He tried to sell 2 pieces of my antique furniture, items worth $15,000 total. I have certificates of authenticity, original purchase receipts, and the dealer who sold them to me 15 years ago as witness. That's theft. Did he actually transport them off the property? Not yet. The dealer got suspicious and called me instead of buying them, but Edwin's attempt shows intent, and it proves he's treating my property as his own to liquidate. Silva's voice carried satisfaction. Intent matters. This isn't about helping you manage property. It's about converting assets to cash. Get me the dealer's statement and those certificates. I'll add theft charges to the complaint. Margaret called that evening. Edwin's unraveling. This furniture stunt was incredibly stupid. He approached a dealer who personally knows you and sold you these items. That's either desperation or delusion. Either way, it destroys Kowalski's concerned family, helping elderly father narrative. He's making mistakes faster than I anticipated. The loan application now this. Pressure creates cracks. True, but desperate people are also dangerous people. Don't let your guard down. Edwin's got nothing to lose now. That night, according to what Silva told me later, Lucretia tried reasoning with Edwin. Found him drinking in the dim living room of my house. Their prison, really? Though they didn't see it that way yet. Edwin, maybe we should just give the house back. Tell my father we're sorry, that we made a mistake, before this gets worse. Edwin slammed his glass on the coffee table, jumped to his feet. Give it back? Are you out of your mind? We forged documents. We changed the locks. We're already facing felony charges. Backing out now doesn't make that go away. It just means we get nothing except prison time. But the furniture, Edwin. Why would you try to sell his furniture? Now there's another charge. Because we need money. Kowalski wants another $10,000 for the trial. The creditors are threatening to sue. I needed $15,000, and those stupid antiques were just sitting there. He punched the wall. Your father set this up. He planted that furniture guy. I know he did. My father didn't plant anyone. You're paranoid. You're drinking too much. And you're dragging me down with you. Then leave. Walk away. But remember, you're on those documents too. Your signature's next to mine on the notary forms. You're just as guilty as I am. We sink or swim together. 4 days after the preliminary hearing, I sat at my kitchen table with the certificate of authenticity for the Victorian settee spread before me. Marcus Herman's signature at the bottom. July 2010. Purchase price $8,500. I photographed it, texted a copy to Margaret. Another piece of evidence. How many mistakes will he make? 1 week after Edwin's furniture disaster, Detective Silva sat across from Darlene Webb in a small conference room at police headquarters. She'd driven here voluntarily, but her hands wouldn't stop fidgeting with her purse strap. Ms. Webb, I appreciate you coming in voluntarily. I need you to walk me through exactly what happened the day you notarized that power of attorney. Don't leave anything out, even details that seem minor. Darlene took a breath. It was late January, around 2:30 in the afternoon. A man and woman came into my office. The man, Edwin, seemed very nervous, kept checking his watch, pacing. The woman did most of the talking. What did she say? Said her father needed to sign over a power of attorney, but he was too ill to come inside. Darlene's voice cracked slightly. She was so convincing about his health problems. Silva leaned forward. Did you see Granville Moreno in person at any point? Did he present identification? Did you watch him sign the document? No. The word came out small. The woman showed me a photo on her phone of an elderly man sitting in a car in the parking lot. She kept saying, he's so frail now, and I just want to help him. She called him Daddy. I notarized the signature that was already on the page. I know I shouldn't have. I know it was wrong. Silva made notes. Later that day, he pulled phone records. Found Lucretia's internet search history from 2 days before the notarization. Elderly man in car stock photo. Found the exact image saved in her browser cache. Ms. Webb, what you did violates Texas notary law. But you came forward. You're cooperating. If you testify truthfully in court and provide a sworn affidavit, the DA will recommend suspension of your notary commission rather than criminal charges. Do we have an agreement? Yes, absolutely. I'll testify. I made a terrible mistake, and I want to make it right. That same week, the independent expert reports arrived at Judge Morrison's chambers. Dr. Sanders' psychiatric evaluation. No evidence of cognitive impairment, dementia, or diminished capacity. Subject demonstrates normal memory function, sound judgment, and complete mental competency. Dr. Huang's forensic analysis. With 98% certainty, the signature on the disputed power of attorney was not executed by Granville Moreno. Judge Morrison issued her order the next morning. Edwin Carver and Lucretia Moreno must vacate the memorial property within 48 hours. Margaret delivered the news to me in person. We sat at my rental apartment kitchen table, the eviction order between us. 48 hours, I said. They'll have to move quickly. They might damage the property on their way out. Margaret's tone was matter of fact. Document everything when you go back in. Photos, video, written inventory. We'll add property damage to the civil suit. Jimmy Kowalski called Edwin that afternoon. I heard about it later through Silva's sources. Kowalski's voice flat, professional, but resigned. Edwin, the court issued an eviction order. You have 48 hours to vacate. The independent experts confirmed the forgery and cleared Granville of any mental impairment. What about the appeal? Edwin's voice rising. You said we could appeal. You said, we'll file the appeal because I'm ethically obligated to. But I'm telling you straight, it won't be granted. The evidence is overwhelming. You need to start thinking about plea deals and minimizing prison time, not about winning. They filed the appeal anyway, went through the motions at the courthouse, signatures on paperwork that everyone knew was futile. 2 evenings later, Lucretia sat on the bathroom floor of my memorial house. Edwin passed out drunk in the living room. She stared at her phone for 10 minutes before pressing the call button. My phone rang at 9:47 p.m. Lucretia Mobile on the screen. I picked up. Said nothing. Just waited. Daddy, please! Her voice broke on the words. Please just listen. It was Edwin's idea, all of it. He manipulated me. I was scared of him. I can testify against him. I can help you. Just please don't let them send me to prison. I'm your daughter. Please. I let her finish. Every desperate word. Every stammered excuse. When she finally ran out of breath, I counted to 5. Lucretia, you called me old homeless man. You stood by while Edwin threatened to sell my house for his gambling debts. You forged my signature. You changed my locks. You chose this path. I know I did. But I was wrong. I'm sorry. Can't we just... You're 36 years old. You made your choices. I made mine. You'll have your day in court. That's all I have to say. I ended the call, set the phone down, walked to the kitchen sink and poured myself water, stood at the window looking at Houston's night sky. One moment of sadness, not regret, just acknowledgement that my daughter was truly lost. Then I returned to the table and texted Margaret. Lucretia just called begging for forgiveness. I declined. She'll probably try to negotiate a deal now. Be prepared. My phone buzzed at 10:17 a.m. on eviction day. Margaret's text. Sheriff confirmed Edwin and Lucretia are loading final items into rental truck. They'll be out within 2 hours. Meet me at the house at 2 p.m. Bring your phone fully charged. Document everything. I changed into work clothes. Jeans, practical shirt, boots. Prepared myself for what I'd find. They vacated at 11:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the deadline. Edwin in a rental truck heading to some cheap motel. Lucretia in her sedan toward a studio apartment in Spring Branch. At 2 o'clock, I met Margaret in front of my house. My house. She handed me the spare key. I unlocked the front door, stepped inside. The Victorian settee had a broken leg, upholstery torn. Hardwood floors throughout the main level showed deep scratches and gouges. 2 front windows cracked. The master bedroom reeked of water damage. For the next 3 hours, I documented everything. 147 photos, 12 minutes of video, written inventory on my phone listing each item and estimated repair cost. This is the living room floor, I narrated into the camera. Gouges approximately 1/4 inch deep, intentional destruction. By week's end, contractors provided estimates. Total, $28,400. Floor refinishing, window replacement, plumbing repairs, furniture restoration, interior painting, miscellaneous damage. Margaret filed supplementary civil claim. All photos attached, all estimates documented. 3 days after vacating, Edwin made his move. 6:30 in the morning, he drove south on Highway 59 toward the Mexico border at Laredo. 245 miles, 8,000 in cash from maxed out credit cards. Vague plan to disappear. At the Laredo checkpoint around 9:15 a.m., the CBP officer scanned Edwin's license. The alert Silva had issued 5 days earlier flashed immediately. "Sir, please pull into secondary inspection." 3 Border Patrol agents approached, asked questions, made a phone call. "Sir, you're being detained on a warrant from Harris County." Silva received the call at 8:42 a.m., drove 4 hours south, formally arrested Edwin for attempting to flee prosecution, transported him back to Houston, Harris County Jail, bail set at $150,000. Edwin couldn't afford it. Meanwhile, Lucretia's life unraveled. Within a week, her salon terminated her employment. Loss of client trust, they said. Reputation concerns. Several customers had specifically requested different stylists. I moved back into my memorial house that weekend. Walked through each room, assessing the damage personally. Ran my hand over floors I'd refinished in 2018. Examined the broken settee my late wife had loved. The repair crew arrived Monday morning. Sanders on floors. Hammers installing windows. Paint sprayers covering damaged walls. The furniture restorer carefully gluing the settee's broken leg. I stayed during the repairs, sometimes helping, sometimes sitting on my front porch, watching the neighborhood return to normal. Mr. Patterson approached one evening. "Glad to see you back home, Granville. If you need anything, just let me know." "I appreciate that, Patrick. House is getting repaired." Life moves forward. In late May, Judge Morrison set the trial date, June 16, 2025. Margaret called with the news. The DA wants Lucretia to testify against Edwin in exchange for a plea deal, probation instead of prison. Are you okay with that? I considered for 30 seconds. Only if the deal includes full restitution, every dollar of damage, every legal fee, and a restraining order preventing contact with me for minimum 5 years. I'll communicate that to the DA. Those terms are reasonable. I don't care if she avoids prison. I care that she never contacts me again and that I'm made financially whole. One evening, about a week later, I stood in my living room examining the newly refinished floors. They were beautiful. Better than before, actually. The restoration expert had done excellent work on the settee. The new windows gleamed. I walked to the front porch and sat in my rocking chair. Watched the Houston sunset. My phone buzzed. Silva's text. "Edwin's in county jail, can't make bail. Lucretia's attorney reached out about plea deal. Trial's in 3 weeks. This is almost over." I looked at the contractor's timeline posted on my refrigerator through the screen door. Completion date, June 10th, 6 days before trial. The house would be whole before justice was served. I texted back, "Good. Thank you for everything, Ramon." 3 weeks after Silva's text, I stood before my bedroom mirror, adjusting my tie. Deep burgundy, professional. The same suit I'd worn for major trials as a prosecutor. My hands knew the movements without thinking. The house repairs were complete. Floors gleaming, new windows, fresh paint. Better than before, actually. I drove downtown through morning traffic, parked in the public garage, walked 4 blocks to the courthouse. Margaret waited at the entrance. "Ready?" she asked. "I've been ready since February." Courtroom 4B on the 4th floor. Wood-paneled walls, Texas and American flags flanking the judge's bench. We took seats in the 3rd row of the gallery. Edwin was led in, wearing an orange jumpsuit. Handcuffs removed once he sat next to Kowalski. He didn't look at me. At 9:07 a.m., Judge Morrison entered. Everyone rose. The jury filed in. 12 citizens, 7 women, 5 men. They took their seats. Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Walsh stood. For 28 minutes, she outlined the charges. Forgery, theft over $300,000, property damage, attempted flight. This wasn't a family misunderstanding, Walsh concluded. This was calculated theft, motivated by financial desperation. Kowalski's opening was weak. Poor decisions, and tremendous stress, and attempts to make me the villain. Several jurors looked skeptical. The prosecution's case unfolded methodically. Detective Silva testified about the investigation. Dr. Huang explained the signature analysis, 99.8% certainty of forgery. Darlene Webb admitted she never saw me in person. At 2:15 p.m., they called my name. I walked to the witness stand, placed my hand on the Bible, took my seat. For 47 minutes, I delivered testimony. Clear, methodical, every detail precise. Then Walsh played the recording. Edwin's voice filled the courtroom. Aggressive, crude. "We're selling it next week. Gonna clear my $340,000 in debts." I watched the jury watching Edwin, saw the moment his words sealed his fate. Kowalski tried cross-examination. "Isn't it true you deliberately left documents out to tempt them?" "I left documents in my own house. What Edwin chose to do was his decision, not mine." "That's entrapment. Entrapment requires law enforcement to induce criminal activity. I'm a private citizen. Texas is a one-party consent state. I documented a crime being committed against me. That's evidence." Edwin took the stand against Kowalski's better judgment. It was a disaster. Defensive. Hostile. Contradicting himself. When Walsh asked about the border flight, he actually yelled at her. Judge Morrison had to instruct him to control himself. Closing arguments. Walsh methodically connected every dot. Kowalski made a disjointed appeal to sympathy that rang hollow. At 4:42 p.m., the jury retired to deliberate. Margaret Silva and I waited in the hallway, drinking courthouse coffee, not talking much. 2 hours and 8 minutes later, the bailiff emerged. "Jury has reached a verdict." We returned to the courtroom. The foreman stood, a middle-aged man, an engineer. "On the charge of forgery, we find the defendant Edwin Carver guilty. On the charge of theft over $300,000, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of property damage, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of attempted flight from prosecution, we find the defendant guilty." Edwin's face went blank. Kowalski closed his eyes briefly. Judge Morrison announced sentences immediately. "Edwin Carver, you are sentenced to 4 years in Texas Department of Criminal Justice custody, fined $50,000, and ordered to pay full restitution." Court officers led Edwin away in handcuffs. He didn't look back. Lucretia tried to catch my eye from across the courtroom. I deliberately looked away, gathered my papers, stood to leave. In the hallway, Silva shook my hand. That was the most thorough evidence package I've ever seen from a civilian. Walsh congratulated us, said the case would be used in training. I thanked them both, then walked toward the elevator with Margaret, ready to go home. 2 months later, mid-August, I sat on my front porch in the early evening. Rex lay at my feet, breathing steadily. The house behind me was completely restored. The floors gleamed. The new windows caught the sunset. Fresh paint throughout. It felt cleansed, not just repaired. That afternoon, the mailman had delivered a letter from Lucretia. 3 pages, her handwriting, apologizing, taking responsibility, begging for eventual forgiveness, but respecting the no-contact order. I read it once, folded it carefully, placed it in my desk drawer. At 5:47 p.m., Silva's car pulled into my driveway. He emerged carrying a 6-pack of St. Arnold. "Granville brought some beer, figured we could sit a spell." "Ramon, good timing. Have a seat." We settled into the rocking chairs, opened beers, talked. "Edwin's at Ramsey Unit," Silva said. "Works laundry detail, keeps quiet mostly." He told me about the creditors. 3 civil judgments totaling $470,000, following Edwin for 20 years. Wage garnishment, financial destruction. "He tried to steal your future to escape his debts," Silva said. "Now those debts consumed his future. I didn't want him destroyed. I wanted accountability." We talked about other things. His daughter getting into University of Houston. My plans to maybe travel. The Astros. Normal conversation. After an hour, Silva stood to leave. At his car, he turned back. "You know what impressed me most? You never wanted revenge. You wanted accountability. There's a difference. Revenge makes you like them. Accountability makes you better than them." I nodded slowly. He drove away. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. "Margaret, the restitution order is finalized. Payment schedule over 15 years. You'll see money starting next month." She told me the case was being written up in the Texas Bar Journal. Other attorneys were calling for consultations. My documentation approach was becoming a model. "Your assets are secure," she said. "Everything you built is protected. The case is closed." After the call, I sat in silence, watched the sunset deepen, thought about the price of this victory. I had my house, my dignity. Justice served, but my daughter was lost to me, not because of the court's order, but because of who she chose to become. I allowed myself one moment of honest grief. Then I stood, stretched, walked inside. Rex followed. I prepared dinner, grilled chicken, vegetables, ate at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd set the trap. After washing dishes, I returned to the porch as darkness settled. Mr. Patterson walked past on his evening walk. "Beautiful evening," he called. "It is indeed." This small normal interaction felt significant. The neighborhood had accepted me back. Life had returned to its rhythm. I sat in my rocking chair, Rex at my feet, my house behind me, restored and secure. I reached down and scratched Rex behind the ears. The old dog Edwin had dismissed, still here, still loyal. I thought about my late wife, what she'd think of everything. She'd probably be heartbroken about Lucretia, but proud of how I'd handled it, with precision and patience, with principle rather than rage. Justice had prevailed. Though it cost me my daughter, it preserved my dignity and the life's work I'd earned over 35 years. The key worked. The house was mine. The debts were paid, and I could finally rest. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.